Strap in because this isn't your average high school story. One minute, Issei Hyoudu's dreaming of dates, and maybe, just maybe, getting lucky. The next, he's bleeding out under a street lamp, staring up at a fallen angel who just turned his first girlfriend into his first executioner. From that moment on, it's game over for normal life. Welcome to the world of devils, angels, and battles that hit as hard as the fan service does. This is High School DxD, where the fights are wild, the stakes are deadly, and the ecchi, oh, it's turned up to 11. The episode kicks off at Kuo Academy, which just switched from being an all-girls school to co-ed. Issei Hyoudou and his two buddy perverts, Matsuda and Motohama, come up with a plan to sneak a peek at the Kendo Club girls. Of course, they get caught and end up all tied up and smacked around with bamboo shinai in a hilarious punishment. Later, while he's lying around in an old school building, he spots this gorgeous red-haired girl checking him out silently. It's Rias Gremory. Issei was on his way home from school when Yuma Amano stopped him on a bridge. This shy girl suddenly confessed, asking, "Will you go out with me?" Totally caught off guard, Issei could barely believe it and managed to say yes. Just like that, his dreams felt like they were coming true. He had a girlfriend. Yuma asks Issei out on a date for the weekend, and they end up hitting some shops, grabbing crepes, and strolling through the city. Classic romantic anime stuff. Issei can't stop blushing and is super excited. As night falls, Yuma takes him to this quiet park with just one street lamp lighting it up. The vibe changes. What felt all dreamy suddenly starts to feel kind of creepy. Under the soft glow of the lamp, Yuma's vibe shifts. She asks Issei if he could do something for her, and then, in a creepy twist, asks, "Would you die for me?" Out of nowhere, black angel wings pop out from her back, and she sheds her schoolgirl act. Turns out she's Rainer, a fallen angel. Without any warning, she summons a glowing spear of light and stabs him, taking him out. The spear goes deep, blood pours out, and Issei crumples down beneath the lamp. As he lies there bleeding out, Rainer coldly reveals that Issei is in trouble because he has a sacred gear, a pretty dangerous power. His vision starts to fade, and his last thoughts drift to Rias. He can't help but feel bummed that he never got to touch either her or Yuma's milkers. Kinda crude, but an honest regret. Then, a magical summoning circle shows up underneath him, and Rias's calm image appears, reaching out to him just as he slips into darkness. Issei wakes up the next morning in his room, feeling completely fine, like nothing ever happened. When he asks Matsuda and Motohama about Yuma, they just look at him all confused, like they haven't seen her, and her number isn't even in his contacts. He starts to feel like something's definitely off. As the hours pass, he notices that his senses are on overdrive. He can hear sounds from really far away and see way better in the dark. That night, whether out of curiosity or just instinct, Issei decides to head back to the park. Suddenly, he gets ambushed by Donasik, another fallen angel. He takes a hit from a new spear and ends up seriously hurt. Just when Donasik is about to finish him off, a flash of red magical light lights up the park. Rias Gremory drops in with two friends, Eikeno Himejima, who's tall with dark hair, and Koneko Tuju. They team up and manage to chase Donasik away. Rias crouches next to Issei and says, "You belong to me now." The next morning, Rias shows up in Issei's room again, and they're both naked. She tells him that she's a devil and used her magic to bring him back to life. He really did die from Rainar's spear, but now he's her devil servant. With that news, Issei realizes that his life as a human is over. He's now a part of the devil world, tied to Rias, and diving into a crazy world filled with sacred gears, devils, angels, and a lot of danger. If you're feeling the hype, drop a like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell so you don't miss a single overpowered, over-the-top moment. Panic hits him hard as he tries to cover up, his heart racing. But Rias doesn't seem bothered at all. Out of nowhere, Issei's mom barges in and freaks out when she sees what's going on. Issei's in a frenzy trying to hide himself. He can't really remember much from last night, but then Rias reminds him that he got stabbed by a spear, and it hits him that this was all too real to be a dream. She even used some magic on him while he was naked to help him heal. At school, everyone can't believe their eyes seeing Rias with our complete perv of a guy. He even faces off against his buddies and straight up tells them he's seen everything of hers. Later that day, Yuto Kiba, this tall, good-looking second year who's kind of a genius, shows up in class. He casually leads Issei to the occult research club room. Kiba's polite but a bit distant, dropping hints that he's involved in some supernatural stuff too. Once they're inside, Issei meets the rest of Rias's crew. Eikeno Himejima, who's all dazzling yet quiet, and Koneko Tuju, who's small but has a serious glare that can be pretty intimidating, even without saying a word. Rias goes over things again. All the club members are devils, and they're caught up in a battle between three groups: angels, fallen angels, and devils. She also drops a bombshell about Yuma, who he used to date. Turns out she was a fallen angel sent to take him out. Then, she brings Issei back into the loop about her clan and introduces introduces him to her peerage members. Issei's first job is basically handing out pamphlets, just the regular stuff for a newbie devil servant. If he does a good job, he might even score his own servant, which he can use for some holy stuff. Plus, he's got devil wings now, just like the rest of the club members. Issei starts his quirky job by delivering flyers for devil services. Since Kaneko's regular client bailed on her because of a schedule clash, she hands the job over to him. Issei hops on his bike and rides across town to meet this new client, who seems kind of like a fanboy. After some convincing and a bit of whining, Issei finally gets a meeting. The client spills that he usually does cosplay stuff with Kaneko. Their casual chat quickly turns into a funny debate about Drag So Ball, which is a parody manga of Dragon Ball. On his way home alone that night, Issei suddenly gets jumped by Calawarner, a fallen angel. She starts mocking him for being a devil servant now. Caught off guard and with zero training, Issei freaks out but somehow manages to activate his boosted gear, the sacred gear that's been sealed in his arm. Suddenly, his gauntlet lights up, and he feels his speed pick up. He fights back and manages to push Calawarner away, leaving her stunned. It's his first real taste of demonic power, and it's a mix of fear and excitement all at once. The next morning, Issei heads to school feeling super tired and beat up. While he's on his way, he accidentally trips and bumps into a nun named Asia Argento, knocking her down in a funny way. This little mishap kicks off the heartwarming moments that are coming up in future episodes. Issei helps Asia Argento, the nun, get back on her feet. She's totally the kind of girl he goes for, blonde and exactly his type. After she says she's lost, Issei decides to walk her back to the church. Asia feels lucky to have met someone so nice. On their way, they run into a kid who's crying over a scraped knee, and Asia shows off her healing skills. Watching her do that makes Issei feel a bit uneasy. As they head over, Issei can't shake this weird feeling in his left hand. It gets stronger as they get closer to the church, to the point where he hesitates to step inside or take Asia any further. Asia casually invites him to drop by the church anytime, and he agrees to it. After Issei asks Rias about that weird feeling he got while walking Asia to the church, Rias drops the bomb that the church is actually an enemy hideout. She warns him that being buddies with Asia means he's basically hanging out with the enemy. Rias tells him to steer clear of her for his own good, reminding him to watch his back before she heads out. Later on, Rias and the crew take Issei along to take out a rogue devil, one who's actually killed its own master. While they're at it, Rias fills Issei in on everyone's chess rank and skills. Basically, Issei's just a pawn among all these players. After that, Issei arrives at a house for another job to land a contract. When he knocks and no one answers, he walks in and finds a bloody corpse. Turns out it's the work of a crazy exorcist named Fried Selzen, who works for the fallen angels, and he shows up to confront Issei. Fried openly admits to taking out the guy, saying that his victim was working with the devils. He points out that Issei is another devil and starts attacking him. At first, Fried holds the advantage, shooting Issei in the leg and slicing him with a lightsaber. Then, Asia walks into the room and freaks out, screaming at the sight of the bloody body. Fried questions why she abandoned her job of keeping the barrier that hid his presence, wondering if this is the first time she's seen a dead body, and then spills the beans that Issei is a devil. Asia is totally shocked to find out that Issei is a devil, and he even admits it. Fried tries to go after Issei again, but Asia jumps in front of him to protect him. Fried easily pushes her aside and pins her against a wall, trying to do something messed up in front of Issei. This makes Issei forget about his pain, even though he knows he's at a huge disadvantage, and he punches Fried right in the face. Fried is about to take Issei out when suddenly, the rest of the occult research club shows up to help him out. Rias wants to step up to the creep, but saving Issei takes priority, so they decide to pull back for now. Issei and his friends make a quick getaway, leaving Fried behind while his master approaches in this blinding light. Before they leave, Issei really wants to take the injured Asia with them, but he finds out he can't because the teleportation circle only works for people in the Gremory clan. The episode wraps up with Issei struggling to save Asia. Recovering from the last fight, Issei is all about getting stronger to rescue Asia, even though Rias keeps giving him a hard time for wanting to mess with the other side's business. He decides to hit the park and practice some chin-ups, trying to build his strength, but he ends up totally wiped out and falls to the ground. Then, out of nowhere, he runs into Asia. They both end up going on a date together. They both decided to take a stroll around town and ended up having a blast playing arcade games and doing a bunch of other fun stuff on their first date. Asia also helped him with his wounds, and it was like he healed instantly. While they were hanging out, she opened up about her past, sharing how she was abandoned and raised by a church. She even mentioned an experience where she had to confront some kind of devil while healing. Asia sees all her tough times as tests from God. When he noticed she didn't have any friends, he promised to be her friend, and that totally brightened her up. At the end of the date, Rainer, the fallen angel who was pretending to be Yuma earlier, shows up. She's looking for the fallen angel Asia. Issei gets all pumped up and tries to boost his powers, but he ends up getting jabbed with a spear again pretty quickly. This time, Asia is totally on his side to help him get better fast. Issei tries to stand up to her, but gets easily taken down because he's just not experienced enough. When she sees Issei get hurt while trying to protect her, Asia decides to go with Rainer to save him, and Rainer agrees to that deal. After Rainer takes Asia away, Issei heads back to the club room looking for some help, but he ends up getting slapped by Rias. He starts arguing about how he wants to bail on the party, but Rias reminds him that in chess, a pawn can be promoted to any piece except for the king. Yuto decides to back Issei up, and Kaneko jumps in on the action too. Later on, Yuto and Kaneko tag along with him to the church, where Asia is being held hostage. They need to rescue her, and that's when Rias and Akino show up too. Kaneko walks into the church and runs into the fallen angel Fried, who tries to stop Issei and the others. But Issei and Kaneko are able to take him down, especially since Issei temporarily boosted his strength through a pawn promotion, mimicking the power of a rook. After Fried manages to escape, Issei and his crew head to the basement, where they catch the shocking moment of Rainer stealing Asia's sacred gear and killing her in the process. Rainer takes Asia's sacred gear and puts it into herself. While that's happening, Issei, Kiba, and Kaneko are fighting off a bunch of rogue exorcists. Issei manages to get to Asia just in time to catch her when Rainer frees her from the cross. Right when Rainer is about to finish them off, Issei brings up his date with Yuma. Meanwhile, Rias is busy dealing with the other fallen minions. As Rainer was about to stab my boy, he swoops in and saves Asia, then manages to carry her upstairs to the main part of the church while Kiba and Kaneko keep the priests busy. After getting her sacred gear taken away, Asia's life starts slipping away. Issei is desperate, begging her to hang on and promising that he'll always be there for her as a friend. In her final moments, Asia thanks Issei for being her first friend, which breaks his heart and makes him cry a lot. Then Rainer shows up and drops the bomb that she can now heal the wound Kiba gave her earlier. She shows off that she's figured out how to use Asia's sacred gear, Twilight Healing. Issei is totally fed up with Rainer messing with Asia's life and basically calls her out for a fight in a fit of rage. Meanwhile, outside the church, Rias and Akino are still battling it out with the fallen angel trio. Rias gets really ticked off when her servant gets dissed and finally takes them down. Inside the church, Issei tries to take on Rainer, but he's totally outmatched. The stronger fallen angel gets the upper hand, even going so far as to stab him in both thighs with light spears. Thinking back on Rias's advice, Issei pleads for the power to take down Rainer, and suddenly his sacred gear activates for the first time. It boosts his strength beyond Rainar's, giving him the chance to land a solid punch right in her face and take her down with one hit. After the fight, Rias and the gang come over to give Issei props for his first win. While Kaneko pulls the knocked-out fallen angel back into the building, Rias notices that Issei's sacred gear has changed and realizes what it really is. She tells Rainer that Issei's gear isn't the twice critical, like she thought, but actually the boosted gear, which is one of the 13 Longinus-class sacred gears, legendary artifacts capable of slaying even gods. It has the spirit of the Red Dragon Emperor sealed inside it. Sensing she's in deep trouble, Rainer quickly changes back into Yuma and starts begging Issei to let her go. But Issei sees right through her act, keeps his true feelings in check, and convinces Rias to take her out instead. Issei is feeling pretty down about the death of his first girlfriend, but when Rias decides to bring Asia back as her servant and returns her sacred gear after reviving her as a devil with a bishop piece from her Evil Pieces set, Issei is super happy to have Asia back again. Rias explains that she used all 8 of her pawn pieces just to revive him, meaning Issei is special. He's a wild card who can promote into any piece except king when conditions allow, giving him insane growth potential. She tells him to aim to become her ultimate pawn and kisses him on the forehead. Just then, Asia shows up in the club, having just transferred to Kuo Academy, and they all celebrate her joining. Meanwhile, a mysterious person is seen watching the scene from outside the window through a red bird. Next, we jump to a day when Issei is checking out some cool stuff from Asia, while on the other side, she's just chilling in the bath. Kaneko catches him and starts scolding him, saying he's stealing some unholy clothes. So they've set up some living arrangements for Asia in the club room since she's been hanging out with the Occult Research Club for a while now. At the same time, Rias has decided to put Issei through some basic training to help boost his stamina and overall fitness. She talks to Asia about the whole lodging situation. The next day, Rias is helping Issei with his basic training since she doesn't want him to be a weak servant. He's definitely enjoying the perks of being around Rias while working out. Asia also shows up but ends up tripping a bit. After finishing his training, Issei is pretty shocked to find out that Asia has decided to move into the Hyoudou residence just to be with him. His parents are taken aback at first, but Asia manages to win them over. Rias jumps in, saying that Issei is going to start some marriage training, and suddenly his parents are all excited about the idea of having a grandkid. With that, they completely agree to let Asia stay. Asia joins Issei's class the next day, and after finishing pamphlet duty, he finally lands his first real contracts. First up is Milton, a muscle-bound guy who dreams of becoming a magical girl. Then comes Susan, a foreigner in full samurai armor looking for help confessing to her crush. Issei pulls both off like a pro, and the club celebrates his success. During the celebration, Issei and Rias have a moment that seems a bit more intimate, which catches Akino's attention as she notices the subtle shift in her master's behavior. Rias thinks that Issei and Asia have put in a good enough effort with the pamphlet handouts, so it's time for them to get their own familiars. Rias and the crew then show off their own familiars, which are basically just their pets that can turn into humans. They get cut off when the student council shows up. Rias spills the beans to Issei that the current student council president Sona Citri is a high-class devil and comes from the Citri clan. She's also got more minions now. Rias and Sona introduce their new servants to each other, and that's when Issei and Saji kick off a new rivalry. Saji comes off as a total arrogant brat. When he meets Asia, he thinks she's cute, but Issei isn't having any of it and jumps in out of jealousy. So when Saji mentions that Sona gave him the chance to get a familiar, it totally clashes with Rias's plan to pair Issei and Asia together. Since only one of them can have a familiar at a time, it puts Rias and Sona in a bit of a bind. They, along with their queens, decide to have a tennis match to figure out who gets to go first in getting their familiar. Rias and Sona kick off their tennis match while Issei can't take his eyes off his girls. His buddies are just hanging out, having a good time. Sona ends up tossing some magic into the game, and soon enough, both of them are using spells. By the end of it, their rackets are totally trashed, but it's still a tie since the match doesn't really have a clear winner. Rias and Akino chatted about what their next match should be and finally settled on a dodgeball game. Issei and the whole crew got ready for it, and when the match kicked off, things went completely wild. The action was insane, and the energy was off the charts. Seriously, it felt like the windows might break. In the heat of the game, one of the balls hit my dude right in the nuts, and Asia had to step in and heal him. They're super fired up to get revenge and even go for Saji's nuts. The dodgeball game wraps up with the Occult Research Club coming out on top, and now they get to choose their familiars first. All the club members then teleport to the familiar forest, where Issei and the crew meet the familiar master, Zatuji. He takes them on a tour of the forest, and they end up discovering an undine. Issei was totally expecting to find a beautiful water spirit as his familiar, but he's in for a shock when he sees that the actual undines are just these burly, muscular old women rocking pink togas. So they decide to keep searching for other familiars instead. Later on, Issei came across a baby sprite dragon and thought about making it his familiar, but then a slime showed up and ended up dissolving the clothes of all the girls around. Issei was pretty impressed by what the slime could do and its boldness. So he changed his mind and decided he wanted the slime as his familiar instead of the sprite dragon. Unfortunately, that backfired because the slime's creepy nature grossed Rias and the others out, and they ended up getting rid of it, leaving Issei really bummed out. As Issei is trying to save the last bit of slime on Asia, the baby sprite dragon swoops in and zaps it all away. Then the familiar master pipes up and says the baby sprite dragon really likes Asia. So, Asia decides to make it her familiar and gives it the name Rasai. The scene shifts to a dream where Issei's friends are just wailing as he's about to marry Rias. His parents look kinda disappointed, but he's totally cool with it since, he can start a family later. Right as he's about to kiss her, something weird happens that connects him with his inner dragon, who's been trying to get his attention for ages. Issei wakes up feeling super freaked out, not having a clue what just went down. At school, Matsuda and Motohama can't believe how Issei is getting all this special treatment from Asia. They're practically begging him to hook them up with some girls too. They even offer him some VIP seats as a bribe. So all three of them are caught sneaking a peek at the girls in the kendo club while they're in the changing room, and then they get their butts kicked by Koneko. Later, in the clubroom, Asia's busy healing Issei, and Rias casually mentions that she wouldn't mind showing her body to him. After Issei and the rest head out, Rias and Akino sit down for a chat about Rias being extra nice to Issei lately. She knows he can be a bit of a troublemaker, but somehow he always manages to keep their clients happy. As Akino leaves, a strange magic circle suddenly pops up in the clubroom in front of Rias. In Issei's room at night, he's daydreaming about being the king of his harem. He thinks he'll take a bath, but as soon as he opens the bathroom door, he freaks out because Asia is already in there. Right before he was about to leave, Asia nervously grabs his hand and admits she's never been with a guy before. She says it's totally cool because they can really connect. But then, out of nowhere, Issei's mom bursts in and catches them in the act. Then the scene shifts to Issei, who is just trying to convince himself that he's not a pervert. When out of nowhere, Rias shows up and asks him to take her virginity. It's super unexpected, and she starts taking off her clothes. But just as things are heating up, a magic circle appears, and a new person shows up, introducing herself as Grafia. Rias then takes off with Grafia, leaving Issei hanging. Next morning, Issei's friends totally caught him off guard. They were just freaking out that they ended up at a hookup party with a bunch of guys instead of some awesome girls. So, Issei runs into Riser Phoenix, who's another high-class devil from the Phoenix clan and is supposed to be Rias's fiancé. Rias and Riser get into an argument because she flat-out refuses to marry him, and Riser is all about the idea of marrying her to keep his family name from getting messed up. As Rias and Riser's argument heats up, Grafia steps in and suggests a way to settle things. She offers to have them duke it out in a rating game to sort out their differences. Once they figured out that the best way to settle things was to have a rating game, Riser showed off his entire peerage to Rias and the rest. Issei couldn't help but feel a mix of jealousy, envy, and admiration as he looked at Riser's all-girls team. After watching Riser flirt and mess around with his queen, Yubaluna, completely ignoring his fiancé, Issei gets really mad and challenges Riser to a fight. But he loses right away when Mira, who Riser calls the weakest member of his team, takes him down. After that, Riser just leaves once Rias agrees to the terms for the rating game. The scene shifts to Issei, lugging around bags like he's on some serious servant duty. Meanwhile, Kaneko is just being a total weirdo. Rice is super focused on getting Issei way stronger before the rating game. To get ready for the rating game coming up in 10 days against Riser Phoenix and his crew, Rias sets up a cottage in a remote mountain area for the Occult Research Club's training. Issei struggles through sparring with Kiba, fails to focus under Akino's supervision, and gets slammed by Kaneko. But despite all the setbacks, he keeps pushing. Eventually, while cooking with magic, he discovers that blending battle instincts with, well, pervy motivation helps him unlock a brand new move. While they were having dinner, Issei admitted he felt like the weakest one. Rias bounced back by saying she wants him to get stronger so they don't fall behind in the rating game against the Phoenix and his crew. She casually offers to take a bath together, but Kaneko shuts it down. His hopes crash hard, but the training must go on. Still, he's trying his hardest to master X-ray vision so he can peek through walls and check out the delicates. Grafia is chatting with her boss, Surzex, about Rias deciding to take on the rating game challenge. Later that night, Issei sneaks out to practice a new move he came up with, but Asia shows up to give him a hand. The next day, Rias dives into explaining the background of devils, angels, and fallen angels, which leads to how the rating games came to be. Later that night, when Issei chats with Rias about Riser's powers, she opens up about why she turned down her engagement. This hits Issei hard, and he starts feeling down about his own weaknesses. The next morning, Issei is back at it with another sparring match against Kiba. This time, he's supercharged his gear and can boost it a whopping 12 times. After training hard for 10 days, all the efforts from him and the Occult Research Club really pay off. Issei finally powers up his boosted gear enough to unleash Dragon Shot, and when he hits Kiba with it, it ends up leveling an entire mountainside. Not only does he score his first win against Kiba, but it also shows that Rias's training plan has really worked. An hour before the rating game, Issei is getting ready in his room when Asia walks in and starts chatting with him, looking for some mental support. Once Issei's alarm clock goes off, they head out together to the Occult Research Club. As Issei and his buddies roll into the club room, they get everything set up and mentally gear up for the rating game against Riser and his crew. The match is going to take place in a special spot, like a huge expandable space just for the game. Before heading out, Sona and Tsubaki showed up to cheer for Rias and wish her good luck. The Gremory team then gets transported to a dimension where they find a replica of Kuo Academy, which is going to be used for the rating game. If Issei can make it to the enemy's school, he can level up to Ultimate Queen. The same goes for the other side too. Before the match kicks off, Rias comes up with a game plan and tells Akino, Yuto, and Kaneko to set up some traps to prepare for Riser's attack. While the others go off to get ready, Rias has Issei sitting on her lap, and he starts crying because he's just so happy. She also decides to lift part of the seal she had put on Issei before, since he wasn't strong enough to handle it. Asia gets a bit jealous, and Rias tells Issei that his opponents are going to be girls. She urges him not to hold back just because of that. Once they finish getting ready, Issei and Kaneko make their way to the gym, where they run into 4 of Riser's servants, his rook, Shilin, and his pawns, Mira, Ile, and Nell. Seeing how strong the rook is, Koneko figures it's best to take on Jilin while Issei handles the other 3 pawns. At first, he had a rough time since he was outnumbered 3-1 and it looked like he was just trying to escape. But he turned things around thanks to the boosted gear's ability to double his power. He ended up managing to immobilize his opponents using his new move, Dress Break, which basically strips the girls of their clothes. He nailed this move after a lot of practice with Asia on how to strip clothes effectively. At the same time, Koneko manages to pin Suelin down in a submission hold, making it impossible for her to move. With that done, they head out of the gym while Akeno finishes things off by blowing up the gym with a massive attack, wiping out the defeated crew inside. Meanwhile, in the forest, Kiba runs into 3 of Riser's pawns, Sharia, Marion, and Burant, who have gotten stuck in the traps that Rias' team set up while they were making their way to the enemy's HQ. On the other side, Koneko and Issei are ready to move on and kick off their next plan. But Issei does something that totally grosses Koneko out, so she decides to walk ahead of him. Out of nowhere, Riser's queen, Yubaluna, ambushes her and takes her out. The episode wraps up with Riser warning Rias not to underestimate him. Koneko says sorry to Issei and starts to fade away, ultimately losing her life. In a bid to avenge her, Issei goes after Yubaluna, but Akeno steps in to fight her instead and tells him to back off. After that, Issei shifts his focus back to his ultimate goal of getting promoted. After Rias has to change her plan because of Akeno's battle with Yubaluna, she meets up with Yuto and Issei. Even though both of them are totally against it, Rias decides she's going to take on Riser herself. She explains that while Riser might be immortal, if they can get to his heart, they can beat him. With no other choices left, the 2 guys decide to take on the rest of Riser's team. That's Ravel, Riser's sister, along with Bishop, Carlamine, Riser's knight, Isabella, Riser's rook, Cirrus, another knight, and the twin pawns, Ni and Li. Yuto squares off against Carlamine while Issei takes on Isabella. Issei manages to beat Isabella by using Dress Break to immobilize her and then finishes her off with his dragon shot. When Issei sees that Rias is really struggling against Riser, he wants to help her out more. So he lets his boosted gear evolve into the boosted gear gift and gives that extra power to Yuto. Thanks to this boost, Yuto manages to take down Riser's remaining pieces, except for Ravel, in one big strike with his sword birth. Akeno dropping the bomb about her defeat and Yuto getting knocked out by Yubaluna really took the wind out of their sails. Issei totally ignored Ravel's warning and stormed into enemy territory on his own. He promoted to queen and made his way to the rooftop to help Rias and Asia. But the poor guy was struggling. His body had hit its limit from all the boosted power he had been pushing through, and Riser was just about to wipe the floor with him, putting him on the edge of death. The episode wraps up with Rias stepping down because she's worried about Issei, so it pretty much seals Riser's win. The next scene cuts to Issei chatting with his inner dragon, who tells him that he'll get stronger someday and can share his strength whenever he needs to. When Issei wakes up, he finds himself back in his bed after passing out from the raiding game against Riser and his crew. He feels really down on himself, blaming his weakness for forcing Rias to give up. Not long after, Grafia, Surzek's queen, shows up at his place and hands Issei a magic circle that lets him crash the Gremory Phoenix engagement party in the underworld. When Issei gets to the spot and totally interrupts the party, Surzek steps in and suggests a way to sort things out. A one-on-one battle between Riser and Issei, with Rias' engagement on the line. But when the fight kicks off, it turns out Issei made a deal to trade his left arm for some crazy power from the dragon inside him. But it's only gonna last for 10 seconds. Issei taps into his new power and manages to overpower Riser. But taking him down completely is nearly impossible. As a member of the Phoenix clan, Riser has an innate fire-based regeneration. His body heals from most wounds instantly, making him practically unkillable without holy or divine weapons. He only has a short 10-second chance to make a move, but even after that time runs out, he pulls off the win by catching a slightly weakened Riser off guard with some holy objects he got from Asia, making Riser feel some serious spiritual pain. After the fight, it turns out that Surzek was ready to send a griffin to help Issei and Rias get away if they needed it. The episode wraps up with Rias giving Issei a kiss while they're flying on the griffin, and then it cuts to her telling Issei's parents that she plans to move in with him.